Okay. Um, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you find yourself in the world. My name is Preston Clark. I am a co-founder here at Law Insider. Some of you may know who I am. Many of you probably don't. But it's great to be doing this. It's a big deal for us. We're a small company with a big reach. We serve over 200,000 attorneys and legal professionals and law students all over the country. And that's a really big deal for us because we are a tiny business serving a massive audience. And we're working really, really hard to improve the platform. But it's always flattering for us to come into a situation where we have a bunch of people who want to learn more about how to get value out of something we've built. It's very humbling for us because there were days many years ago where no one was using the site, and it's obviously come a long way, and you're a big part of that. So thank you for being here. Really excited to take the next 45 minutes to an hour to tell you about some new things and some new updates. We may have a guest presenter toward the end. My partner Jaden, he was having some technical issues, so if he can't join, that's okay. I'll do his part. You'll just get stuck with more of me. The topic of today is called Getting More from Law Insider. This is really about sharing with you what we're doing here, what we're building, how to get more value from it. Because we are not a sales-driven organization, but we're a product-driven organization, it means that for many of our users, your orientation to the product has been entirely self-guided. You never went through a sales process or a support process where someone was teaching you how to use what we've built. And to try to catch up to that, because we don't have that as a part of our distribution or a part of, we don't have a sales process. We try to make up for it after the fact by educating you in as many ways as we can to get more value from us. So with that, let me just dive into the rules of the road. Yes, you'll be sent a recording of the presentation today. I'm going to mention a number of resources, a number of links. We will send out sort of a recap of not only the recording, not only the slides that I cover, but also sort of a recap that distills down a lot of the points and a lot of the things I'm going to walk through. We will be taking questions. It's a little bit distracting for me. I'm sort of a one-man show on this today. So I'll probably present for a while and then take a look at the questions and then come back. But feel free to ask questions at any point during the presentation today. And then if you're a customer and beyond what I'm presenting on today, you have questions about your account, if something's not working, you're not able to upgrade, you're not able to downgrade, something is blocked on your account, you can't access something, you can always email us at support@lawinsider.com. We look at that almost 24 hours a day. So typically you'll get a quick response rate. Okay, before I get into the specifics of the presentation, this is helpful for me because I know we think of this as a tutorial, we think of this as an orientation, but I don't know where all of you are coming from. I don't know if you are power users and have used us for years, or if you literally, this is, you just started yesterday. And I'm going to try to make this presentation relevant to both groups, but it's helpful for me to understand where you sit. So I'm going to do a really quick poll. This is the only poll we're going to do. I'd appreciate it if you just take a minute to respond. So I'm going to leave it up for about 30 seconds. But basically what we have is, how do you use us? Are you a superpower user, meaning you're using us daily or weekly? Are you a power user, meaning you're using us monthly, moderate, a few times a year, new, just getting started, which is awesome. And then I think I'm lost, which is how the heck did you end up here? Which, don't be bashful if that's you as well. So I'm going to close this in about 5 seconds. 72% of you have completed. So super engaged group. I really appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and then I'm going to share the results back to you. So it looks like good distribution, a lot of new folks, almost 40% are new. So this will be a good primer for you. For the superpower users, I think you're going to you'll be excited to hear some of the updates we just made in the last 24 hours that you probably haven't found on your own, or though maybe you have, but I'll walk you through them anyway. The power users, thank you. I'll also share some great stuff with you today. And for the moderate group, I think you'll see both ends of the spectrum of hopefully we'll teach you some things that you weren't familiar with, and we're going to introduce you to some new stuff. So, okay, that's awesome. I will close this now, and we're going to jump into the content. Okay. Thank you. So this is me. My name is Preston Clark, sort of recovering attorney, as the saying goes, but I've been working on Law Insider for almost 7 years now. So this has been a big project over a long period of time. And this is a picture of me back when I used to get haircuts, and I clearly do not anymore, thanks to COVID. What we're going to do today, I'm going to do a brief introduction, just sort of a lay of the land of who we are and why we're investing so much in Law Insider. We're going to do orientation and updates. This is a live demo. I'm going to walk you through tips and tricks and updates and features and things that maybe you know about Law Insider or maybe you don't, but there's a bunch of stuff that's literally brand new that I'm going to be showing today. And hopefully you'll walk away being able to search and discover and learn more about or get more value from Law Insider more efficiently. We're going to talk about community and resources. This is an area we're putting a lot of investment in. Sort of, it's not just the product from a database and search perspective, but it's also the education around contracts and negotiations. We have some cool big announcements and a promotion that I want to tell you about. And then if we're able to get Jaden in, he's going to do this bonus section. We just completed our 2020 user study. This may be interesting to none of you. It may be interesting to a bunch of you, but many of you are entrepreneurs or think about origination or think about growing your practice the same way we do. And we just, as a part of that process, and you all may do some variation of this too, we just conducted a big user study to understand how we're used, what you value from us, what you don't value from us, what you find frustrating about Law Insider, what we can do to get better. So we're going to share some of those results with you. And again, that's sort of an optional section that you can do or not do, sort of up to you, but we'll save that for the end. Okay, so first things first, what in the world are we doing? I think this is a worthy question because we're not Clio, we're not Practical Law, we're not Intelligize, we're not Salesforce. Like, what is it that we're trying to do at Law Insider? Why do we think it's important? And for us, sort of our North Star, or what this all anchors to, is this really simple idea that contracts and negotiations is this massive topic area. It's this massive area of expertise that ranges from that obviously has business connotations or sort of business relevance as well as legal relevance. And we think that the education and information and resources surrounding contracts is just underserved. That whether it's for in-house attorneys, transactional attorneys, real estate attorneys, like just go down the list, entrepreneurs, business owners, private equity, venture capitalists, so much of our lives is, as business people, is tied to contracts and tied to, in many cases, complex agreements that we might be navigating, drafting, negotiating for the first time. And that there's not another company that we see that is really just going after this this knowledge base or serving from an academic and intellectual and resource perspective what we think is a major gap in the market. So certainly there are contract database services, contract management, AI-powered contracts, there's Rocket Lawyer, there's LegalZoom. We're not saying that there's not any work being done in and around contracts, but academically, educationally, from a resources perspective, we see a big gap, and that's our North Star as a business. And so what that means is that what we do is we improve the size of our database, we'll expand to new languages, we're gonna make search better, we're gonna make it easier to compare contracts, we're gonna be doing things that help junior attorneys and senior attorneys do your jobs better relative to these topic areas. And because we are a small bootstrap business, it just takes some time, right? So we started this so many years ago, before it was, before there was a single user, not knowing what it would become. And little by little, it started growing, and then that sped up, and now we're at over 200,000 customers in 50 plus countries, which is, I don't think we envisioned that would be the case. Where we have EDU counts in over 200 colleges and universities. We have over 35 attorneys in every AmLaw 100 law firm. And in some cases, it's multiple hundreds within an AmLaw 100. We have in-house attorneys at places like Casio. So our distribution is large, our reputation is building, but our commitment and our North Star is all about contracts and all about negotiations and making those resources available to you to help you do your jobs better in whatever capacity you deal with contracts. So that's sort of the backstory and who we are and where we're going. The purpose of today, the biggest purpose of today, is to show off the platform, to get you familiar with using it in ways that maybe you're not. Maybe you just, again, because no one gave you a proper orientation when you signed up, you've just been hacking it and learning on your own. Some of the superpower users, you're probably better at the platform than I am. Many of you may in fact be. But the goal of today is to show you some tips and some tricks and to introduce you to some new features. And so this is how it's going to break down. I'm going to talk about contract search and clause search. We're going to talk about defined terms. We're going to talk about your profile and what you can do to configure it. We'll talk about resources and education, and we'll talk about new documents. These are the areas that we'll cover. I'm going to do this pretty quickly. We don't have a ton of time today, and I know this is a big chunk of your day to dedicate to education, so want to be as efficient as possible. On that note, I'm going to expand some windows here. I know this doesn't look good yet, so give me 1 second, and I'm going to get this right for you. Oops. Okay, so I'm just going to expand this really quickly. Get my Zoom dashboard all set up here. 1 second. Okay, there we go. So, so let me just get started. Let's start with the basics. I know that many of you are power users, so I promise that I'll move through the basics as fast as I can, and many of you are getting oriented. But let me just start and say, there's not a day goes by that we don't get an email or a phone call that says, I've just subscribed, like, what do I do? Where do I start? And sometimes we're like, well, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean where to start? Well, the reality is it's important to think in terms of our site as a database that has a taxonomy. And the taxonomy is generally divided by contracts, clauses, dictionary, or what is also we would refer to as defined terms. And then there are resources. And then there's your profile. And those are sort of the categories that I'm going to go through. And within each of those, we have enhancements and improvements. But generally speaking, there's two ways to get started with Law Insider. One is what says, what are you looking for? This is sort of our take on the Google search bar. And when you open this, what you're going to see is an expansion that enables you to see where the sort of advanced search filter capabilities come out. And so you have everything from filing year to if then or and Boolean type search and matching prefixes, excluding prefixes. We'll get to this in more detail, but in terms of where to start, if you know exactly what you're looking for, a great place to start is just expanding the search bar and diving in. But what I want to do today is I want to start with contracts, because one of the biggest areas that we've updated is this box right here. Within contracts, and this is also in clause, where you can now search within. This is a very efficient way to find a contract type that you're looking for. So for example, if you want to find executive employment agreements, you start typing it in, and we now have prefixes, which means that you don't have to type in the whole search. So I've just typed in EX, and it's already started giving me suggestions. I'm looking for executive employment agreements, and voila, now I'm in there. So just as a very easy way to get started, this is a great box when you're doing a fast search, looking for a contract type. Another feature that's important that is underutilized Once you're in these categories, and once you've sort of, you've narrowed it down in an area where you're sort of like, okay, there's 50 options, or there's 100 options in the subcategory that I'm looking for, what you want to do is you want to come over here where it says open split view. You expand this, and now what this gives you access to is a preview into the document that is selected on the right. And so again, we've gone into executive employment agreements. We're seeing these listed by date, by publication date. So this is June 2020, June 2020, May 2020. So these are all new. You can certainly filter by company, you can filter by jurisdiction, which we'll talk about in a second. But the idea here is that if I want to get a preview on one, I can click on it and it's going to load in the split view right here. So just this is an easy way to start tracking and filtering as you go. And if you don't want to view it that way anymore, you can click on close split view, and now we're back to where we were. Let me keep going here. If you scroll down, a lot of our updates and a lot of our product and UX investment is going to manifest in this sidebar. So I'd really encourage you to familiarize yourself with it, because what you're going to see is you're going to see similar contracts. So in this case, we're on executive employment agreement, and we're going to see other types of similarly titled documents or categories of documents. You can collapse that if there's nothing there for you. Most common clauses in executive employment agreements. So if really you started at the macro level, but you're trying to drill down into base salary for executives or something to that nature, then we're going to give you recommendations here. You can also further collapse that. And then of course, what you're going to see throughout, I know for those of you who don't have paid accounts, you may be seeing advertisements. If you see these black banners, these are not external ads, these are internal. So sorry that we try to make that as distinct as possible, but these are resources, on-demand webinars, blog articles, etc. They keep you on lawinsider.com, but they just redirect you. And so we try to, as this library of resources grows, we will do our best to contextualize these. So if you're looking for executive employment agreements, we're going to try to feed you articles in and around executive employment agreements. So, okay, let me keep going here. Okay. So something else that is understated, we need to advertise it more, we need to promote it more, but it's where just a massive amount of investment has gone, is under what we refer to as tags. These are, you can call these categories, you can call them whatever you want, but these are sort of, from a taxonomy perspective, the major categories or filters that we're dividing the database by. And the two brand new ones that are very, very significant. So first of all, you should be aware of all of them, that you can filter by law firm, you can filter by executive. So if you want, if you're fascinated by the CEO of Tesla and you want to see all the contracts that he happens to find himself in, you could certainly filter by person. A lot of folks look for law firm because maybe you hold a certain law firm in higher esteem, and so you'd like to see the agreements that they've either drafted or negotiated. But the two new categories, actually three, excuse me, is country, jurisdiction, and U.S. state. And I wanted to spend just a couple minutes walking through each of these. I think they're intuitive, like I say them and you can imagine what they are, but I just want to take a minute to walk through what they in fact are. So let me click on U.S. state here. So it is what it is. So we have Delaware, we have California, we have New York. You can filter by this. So if you're looking for jurisdiction, and this means that this is an agreement where the controlling law is a particular state, this is where it's going to be filtered. So whether it's Washington State or Illinois or Texas, this is new. I think that this has been, it's been up for maybe 2 weeks at the most. This is a feature that we got a lot of demand and requests for, so really excited that it's now available, but I think it's pretty intuitive what it is and how it works. Similarly, I'm sorry, that was U.S. state, but jurisdiction, so I'm sorry, I messed that up. Let me distinguish jurisdiction from state. So state is the state's relating to the parties where they reside. So you could potentially have a contract that has multiple states within it, but jurisdiction is singular. So if you're looking for the jurisdiction that relates to a certain agreement, now you're going to go to the jurisdiction tab. And to expand this a little bit, that's lawinsider.com/tags. I'll expand this just so you can see it. /tags /jurisdiction. But the fastest way to get there is through the sidebar in the contract section, which I did. So now if we look at New York, which is where we see the most jurisdiction, and I expand one of these agreements, what we'll find, I'm just going to do a Control F. What we'll find is that New York is listed as the choice of law within this agreement. So that's the short of it. Let me jump back. I want to finish this section out, and then I want to jump to clauses. Country. So we're thinking about international in two ways, and I think that this is important both for U.S. attorneys and those in another country, and that is that one of the requests that we've received for a long time is, when are you going to expand beyond SEC? And certainly, and as I think is maybe all of you know, or most of you know, the majority of our documents have been sourced from the SEC, and that is starting to change very quickly. And so one of the places you can see that is here, and certainly we have more contracts that are drafted in the U.S. and for U.S. businesses than anything else. But we're starting to expand, and so you'll see that Canada, Australia, Hong Kong, Israel, Germany, Netherlands. So I would encourage you: Brazil, Mexico, South Korea, Philippines, Bahamas, Tanzania. Like, this is Slovenia, El Salvador, Viva El Salvador. Like, we're making a lot of investments in this area, and so this is a place to watch. This is also a place where we'd like your feedback, because we are just embarking down the path of international agreements. All of these are in English, but even that is changing. So I would just say this is a fun area for us. We want this to be an international database. We want there to be agreements that meet the needs of our international audience, which is a large percentage of our users. But also, we're also venturing down the path now of foreign language agreements. So I want to take 1 minute to show you this, and then I'm going to jump over to clauses. So what we're also doing is we're starting down the path of multi-language. And so what you see here is es.lawinsider.com. I'll give you a preview. I'll pull that up so you can see it, es.lawinsider.com. I've now clicked on the category of the contract section, and what we're seeing is contrato de servicio, contrato de suministro, alquilar, obra, préstamo. Like, we're just seeing and these are, by the way, these are very clean. So we've gone through in pretty painstaking detail to filter out different contract types. We're going to continue to make investments here. The numbers are not huge yet, so we don't see the thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands yet, but we are getting there, and we're going to expand to more languages. So for those of you who might find yourself in Latin America or Spain or wherever it may be, we hope that this is an area that you'll both get some value, and an area where you'll hopefully give us feedback, because we're not, it'll be 18 months or it'll be a year before I think we're as proud of this part of our database as we are with the English agreements. So welcome your feedback there, but that is es.lawinsider.com. This recap, of course, will be included in the follow-up. Okay, let me get back to the main database, and let me jump to clauses. We're about halfway through, so I'm going to speed this up a little bit. I think the biggest thing to note on clauses is similar to contracts. The filter bar, just don't forget the filter bar. It's a great place to start. So you can start typing in IND and E. Suddenly you're going to start seeing indemnification come up. So this is a very fast way to filter and to start to narrow down your search. Similarly, this is also, if you're not using split view yet, clause comparison is a great place to use split view. So if you're looking for a certain indemnity clause from a certain type of agreement, this is a place where you can filter through many indemnification clauses to find the one you want, and you can use it to source. So I'm going to find, let's see, find one that has a lot of options. Give me 1 second. Okay, so in this case, I'm looking for indemnification, and I have a handful of options, and what I'm able to do is filter through the ones, and when I click on sample, what ends up happening is, because I'm in split view mode, I'm going to see that sample on the left, and I can keep going down. I think the biggest value for this use case, as we've talked to our users, is that in so many instances, you're not just looking for a general clause, you're looking for a clause that has been negotiated against the backdrop of a certain type of contract, a commercial license agreement or a software license agreement. And so you want to make sure that this is an indemnification clause, as an example, that relates to that type of agreement. And this is just a fast way to do it, because I can filter through and see which type of agreements these different clauses have been sourced from. So hopefully that makes sense. This is just a very much more efficient way to work through that. Okay. Again, as I mentioned, I would continue to emphasize looking when you're in categories of contracts and clauses. I would encourage you to look at this side left bar, because what you will find, again, is you'll find related clauses here, you'll find related contracts, you'll find parent clauses, sub clauses, and of course resources. So continue focusing. We'll make updates and improvements and additions in this area. So it's a good place to watch. Okay. Dictionary, these are defined terms. This is an area of increasing adoption. To our knowledge, there's not another database or resource center that offers this tool baked in. So I don't, correct me on this if you know otherwise, but we don't see that Practical Law or IntelliGize or others make this available, but it is what you think it is. These are defined terms that are extracted from agreements. And this is also a great way, is if you're drafting a large contract for the first time and you want to pull in a starting place of defined terms, this is certainly a very efficient place to do it. I think it's pretty intuitive. In the interest of time, I don't want to spend a bunch on this, but it functions the same way. So I'm going to type in executive. Is that something that might be defined within an agreement? Executive board. So then we go in and similar to how clause is laid out, what you'll see is a handful of definitions. And again, you can also use open split view and see where these definitions are being pulled from. So you go to sample one of this definition, and I can scroll up and see what type of agreement, in fact, at New Jersey State Board of Medical Examiners, law table of contents. So here we go. So that was the origination point for this defined term. Okay, let me keep going. The last thing that I want to touch on before we get into resources and we get into some of the new things is just orienting you to your account and sort of how you're able to track your own progress and sort of store and save information with Law Insider more effectively. And so there's a couple places to do that. First, there's a brand new feature called History. I think there's not a week that goes by that we don't get an email or a phone call from someone saying, I just signed up, I'd started doing a bunch of searches, and now I can't get back to it. If you're logged in, and I encourage you to be logged in when you're using us, you can go to the History button in real time. It will show you your recent history, and you can click on whatever it was you were searching and go right back to it. So this is, this isn't sort of, we didn't invent AI or anything here. This is, these are just very practical tools that improve your user experience throughout Law Insider, and History is something that we've gotten requests for in the past. Lists is a bit more sort of driven by you, but it's sort of lists on steroids, because what it is if you are doing a research assignment and you want to be able to store and save clauses or contracts as a part of that research assignment, you can say, you can start it here. It's a Preston's new list. And I'll just show you how this works really quickly. But effectively now, if I'm going in and I want, if let's say I'm diving into employment agreements and I find one that I like, let me close out a split view for a second. I find one that I like, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the save button right here, and it's going to give me prompts on where I want to save it. And the group, the list that I just created was called Preston's New List, and I'm going to save it, and now it's done. And I can keep going in this vein. And let's say I'll find another employment agreement that I like, and I'm going to click on the save button. And again, the list that I'm interested in is Preston's New List. And then when I go back to lists, what I'm going to see is that there's 2 agreements there. I expand it, and there they are. And I can share this with others in my firm. I can share this with an admin or someone who's helping me with the drafting process. But this is just a very efficient way to store your work. The last thing that I want to talk about is just very, very pragmatic and very direct as it relates to your user experience with us. But your profile page, your account page, for those of you who have premium accounts, I know sometimes you find yourself hitting a paywall and you're like, what the heck? I'm paying you guys X dollars a month. Why is it that you continue seeing a paywall? So much of that relates to being signed into the right account. You use a different computer, you use a different web browser. You had an old free account set up with us, and you had that browser open, and you end up reloading that. If you're ever having an issue, either it's giving you a download limit or it's not letting you do something, I can't encourage enough, I can't stress enough, go to your account page. This is lawinsider.com/profile. It's the account button in the top right. What you'll see here is the email address you're logged into, which, by the way, you can manage. So you can add an email address. So if you have a work email address and a Yahoo or a Gmail, you can add it here, and you'll be able to log in on both, whether it's a free account or a paid. And in that way, as maybe you switch firms and you want to bring the account with you, this is how you do it. It's similar to how LinkedIn is structured. But again, if you're ever having issues with your account, always start here and double check that you're logged into the right place. You can add a profile picture. You can plug in your name, your phone number. We're not calling you. This is just good account verification stuff for us. And then you get into manage your premium subscription. We'll sort of, we're not going to take any time today to tell you the benefits of upgrading. You'll get emails and promotions and things that you can do to upgrade to premium, but effectively, this is where you would manage your account, manage your billing. It's also where you can cancel. So if you decide to upgrade to premium and at some point in time, you also decide not to anymore, you don't have to talk to anybody on the phone. This is not a drawn out process. If you want to cancel, we make that pretty easy. Okay, covered a lot there. I want to jump back to the deck to make sure I'm on track. We're about halfway through the hour. I'm gonna pause and just take a look at and see if any questions have come in. And also, if you have questions, this is a good time to ask. Nick asked the question, please explain how Robert's Rules is handled in your system for bylaws and covenant structures. Nick, I don't even know how to answer that question, honestly, so I'll follow back up. And I know Robert's Rules of Orders and I know contracts, but I'm not sure exactly the best way to answer that. So I think that the answer is it's not, but I suspect it's going to be a question I'll want to follow up with you on. So thanks for asking it. Yeah, so Samir, Brad, yes, we're going to send a recording of the webinar, and we're going to send resources so you can test out some of what we showed off today. Samir asked, are some of the misspellings corrected throughout? IG example indemnification. So there are these, because we're basing the database off of publicly available contracts. To date, and in most cases, our database is only as good as those contracts are clean. And unfortunately, in some cases, those contracts are not that clean. And that's something that we are working on and will continue to work on. But what that means is that, you know what, a lot of people misspell force majeure. And so we have, under force majeure, we have several different categories because people, as it turns out, misspell force majeure consistently. So we have like 5 different spelling variations that have 5 different document groupings, and it's messy and it's imperfect. I think over time we will weed out the misspellings and re-anchor them or push them under the primary and correct spelling. But right now, because there are common and standard misspellings, the database reflects that. And I know that that doesn't make your search experience any easier, but it is where we are today. So it's a good question, and we're going to get better on it. Let me see. Okay, thanks, Carlos. It sounds like he's got to take off. Carlos, we'll send you the recording. Okay, I want to talk about community and resources. So when we get to the next section, one of the things that we discovered when doing our research on you all, on our users, and we started to learn about how you use us and what you value from us, one of the gaps, of course, was more documents, better search filters, all these things that you needed more of, and you needed a better experience from a database perspective. But another area was just straight up education, is that you needed more resources, you needed more templates, more guides, more information. And we know from drilling down on that, it's that some of you went from one practice area to another, and suddenly now you find yourself needing to negotiate real estate agreements, and maybe that's not an area of expertise, or maybe you went from a big law firm to in-house, and your resource set and the types of matters you're handling are different than they used to be. And as a result, you sort of, you can't go back to law school and take, contracts 101 again. And so you need educational resources. So this is an area where we're making a lot of investment and a lot of focus. I'll show that to you really quickly right now. And then when we get into some of the announcements, I'll talk about how that's going to get even better in the next few weeks. So when you're on the database, you'll see in the top where it says resources, drafting, featured, webinars. You can just click on resources to get started. And what you will see here, excuse me, it's a little bit cluttered. Let me get this out of the way. What you'll see here is we're posting articles weekly that are drafted by external experts, people from our network who are attorneys who have a specific expertise, how to write an international commercial arbitration agreement. And let me just expand. Let me show you how to filter this down. Give me 1 second. You can go to drafting. Drafting is probably the place where you'll find the most sort of self-guided tips on, top 50, etc. We're going to continue to update this with more guides and more expansive and deeper resources. But keep an eye on this. We've only launched this in the last couple of months. And are already getting some great contributions, but a lot more is coming here. So I would encourage you to spend some time. This is our most popular article from James Martin, who's one of our community members, 50 tips for drafting contracts. So it's resources like this that will get plugged in over time. And so I would encourage you to come back. And then on the webinar front, some webinars are going to be like this one, where we'll be very much how to use Law Insider. But the majority of them are going to be topic specific. So we did a webinar on the 14th of last month on deconstructing employment agreements. We did one on software as a service agreements with Victor Wang out of San Francisco. So we're going to continue to bring in outside experts to present on topic areas. But this is also where we really value your feedback because we want to learn from all of you on what you need, where you have educational gaps, because we're in a place where we have the resources and we have sort of the wherewithal to make these available. So expect more here. And let me jump back. I want to keep going and make sure I hit on these. So educational webinars, these are lawinsider.com/resources. That's where the blogs are. That's where the on-demand, it's where the live events are promoted as well. And then we're going to start doing monthly tutorials. So to the extent that there are others in your firm, to the extent that there are others, to the extent that you just want to go through this again as we're adding more resources and information, this is, look out for these. We'll promote these on the site. We'll promote these via email. And then I bring up G2 reviews. I'm just going to go to this site really quickly. This may be relevant to very few of you, but we get a lot of requests for attorneys who are trying to quote unquote sell this internally, where you might be paying for it yourself, but you really want your firm to sponsor it, either for you individually or for all the attorneys or a section of the attorneys. If you just do a Google search for G2 Law Insider, we have some incredible reviews. We're up to 22 reviews now, just in the last year, which for those of you who want to leave a review, you can go do it. We would very much appreciate it. But it's nice to have such positive feedback. It's almost 5 stars across the board. So, but what this does is it sort of tells the story of how people are using us, the types of attorneys, where they see value, how they use it. It even includes what they dislike. So if you're curious, sort of what's the catch or what don't we do, this is a really sort of unbiased place. And again, just Google search G2, the letter G2 Law Insider, and this page will come up. Okay. The last thing on resources is we recently launched a Facebook group. I promise I'm not going to try to connect with you and be your friend on Facebook. This is about professional networking. It's about connecting with our support team. We will do live events that are just for that group. We're going to be doing daily contract tip updates there. So if you would like, I send out invitations every once in a while for that. But if you're on this webinar, you're like, hey, invite me to the Facebook group, raise your hand, let me know. You can send me an email and ask for an invitation, or you can put it in the chat box, and we'll make sure you get invited. But that's a really good place to connect with your peers, to learn about Law Insider, and also just get good contract information generally. I'm seeing a lot of people raising their hand. So great, raise your hand. Tell me if you want an invite to the Facebook group. Look at this, awesome. It's like 50 people just raised their hand. So amazing, thank you. You're gonna get an invite, I promise. Okay, let's keep going here. Let's keep going. So some announcements. This is really cool. This is sort of a fun part of the presentation. Not that it all hasn't been fun, but this is a part that I've really been excited about. First, I don't know if anyone knows who Laura Fredericks is. She's awesome. She 25 years in commercial agreements as an attorney. She was in-house corporate counsel for Tesla, for Solar City. Just an amazing track record as an attorney, but has an amazing bent and amazing affinity for education around drafting, but in this very practical, non-academic way, like very much like, here's what you're going to see, here's how to deal with it. She speaks very plainly, she speaks very directly, and we just literally yesterday signed a partnership with her. So we're going to be doing a lot of webinars. You're going to see guides and templates. We're going to have daily updates from her on the Facebook group. And these are daily tips, like just really pragmatic contract tips. So again, if you needed another reason to join the group, I just gave you one. But really, really excited to be partnering with Laura. And there's going to be more information in the coming days about that. And literally the ink is still wet on that contract. I mentioned the Facebook group. Okay, this one is a little bit complicated. So if you're multitasking, just give me like 15 concentrated seconds here, because this one is not obvious, but I think it's important. So one of my commitments, one of our commitments, is to find a way to tap into our community to produce content. And this isn't just because we don't want to pay for content. We're paying for content. We have partnership with Laura. We have partnership with Mike Whalen. We will continue to invest in content. But as an organization that has gathered together literally hundreds of thousands of people who think about contracts on a daily basis, we know that you all are just this incredible resource. What we've been trying to do is trying to find a way to tap into that resource, doing something that's efficient for you, because we realize that you don't have the time to be drafting long blog articles or even doing a webinar necessarily, but that you may want to contribute. And so we've created something called the Contract Teardown. And you're going to be getting more information about this in the coming days. But I want to tell you what it is, and I want to tell you how to participate if you're interested. I think it's pretty cool. I hope that you think, or some of you think it's cool, and I hope that some of you will participate. So here's what it is. You've probably seen the likes of Ken Adams or others pick apart contracts, publicly available contracts. Maybe it's an Oracle agreement or a Tesla agreement or a Salesforce.com agreement or something to that nature. And in some cases, what you're scrutinizing or what's being scrutinized is something that is just, it's too much legalese. It's unnecessarily complex. It literally is contradictory to the intent and just poor drafting. It's clearly anchored against the template and has nothing to do with the actual terms of the agreement. There's all these ways we can identify poorly constructed agreements. But conversely, there's also agreements that we think are magically drafted. And maybe these are ones that in your own research you've discovered and you're like, wow, this was really good. And maybe the really good part was only a clause or a certain section of the agreement, or maybe it was the whole thing. But what Contract Teardown is an opportunity for us to come to you and say, help us find really good agreements or really bad agreements, and let us use that as a teaching moment together. And so what that means in very simple terms is that we want to ask you to find agreements on Law Insider, or if they're publicly available somewhere else, the SEC, or it's a contract that you've sort of anonymized that's in your own database, but that you think has 3 to 5 learnings or insights that are worth sharing. So an example in my line of work is historically I've sold a lot of contracts into higher education, into public universities. And one of the common occurrences is they want a multi-year commitment in terms of fixed pricing, but then they want an opt-out for convenience clause. And that always blows my mind that they want the benefit of our commitment, but they don't want to make the same commitment to us. So they want to be able to get out, but they want the benefit of price consistency for 3 years. And so we always call BS on that, because that's not, we don't see that as a fair dealing. And so where I would find that in a contract, I would sort of highlight it and say, maybe this is the best deal you got and you couldn't do anything with it, but this is an area where I would want to push back. So your area of law, your examples, it's insights like that. And what we're asking you to do is find one of those documents, write down 3 to 5 insights, and you can do that in 5 sentences or 10 sentences. You can be as long as you want or short. You can do it in 2 sentences, and then send it to us. You're going to email it to community@lawinsider.com. You're going to identify the insights. You're going to tell us. You're going to write them down. You're going to give us the link to the document. If we don't have the document because you didn't pull it from Law Insider, then send it to us. But the idea is to have fun with this, because maybe you want to pick on Apple, or you want to pick on Tesla, or you want to pick on a publicly traded company that has a lot of bureaucracy built into it. It's not meant to be this sort of super academic exercise, though the insights need to be and ought to be good, but we don't need to overthink this in terms of why you decided to pick a certain agreement. Send it to us, community@lawinsider.com. We will publish it. We will promote the heck out of you. We'll send it in our newsletter. We'll make you famous, as it were. And if you're interested in doing this, the first 10 people, I'm sorry, we got to build a promotion around it, but this is the promotion. And I think it's a pretty big deal, is we're going to do a year free access to Law Insider to the first 10 people who submit, and that we publish it, right? So it has to be good enough. We have some standards here that the insights need to be good. They need to be professionally written. So don't emphasize on speed here. If it ends up that we get 20 tomorrow, we'll probably give 20 of you free year. But we hope that this is a way that we can start creating community and authorship among our power users and the people who are experts in their particular field relating to a specific type of contract. So hopefully that makes sense. So we're about at time. I see Jaden in the deck. Jaden, I'm not sure if you're there. I'm going to try to pass the controls to you. So, Jaden raised his hand. So Jaden's here. I'm going to see if I can pass the controls. Jaden, of course, I took way too much time. While I'm trying to get Jaden set up, I would say my email is preston@lawinsider.com. Email me if you liked what you saw today, if you think we're missing the mark on updates, if you want to see something different, if you want to contribute, if you want to upgrade, but you can't afford it because you saw the list price, but you want to get premium access and you want a super special Preston discount, you can email me. Our goal here is to create power users. That's why we do the tutorial. Okay, Jaden, I'm gonna get you in here right now, sir. Jaden, I'm going to make you, let's see, promote to panelist. All right, Jaden, you are now a panelist, and I'm going to give you, I'm going to make you a host.
I think I'm good to start sharing my screen.
Oh, cool. Okay, then the floor is yours.
All right. Thanks, Preston. Hey, everybody. Let me share my screen quickly. Preston, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Aha, of course I did. Give me 1 second. Okay, I made you a co-host, so you should be able to do it now, Jaden.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, awesome. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, we got you.
All right, nice to meet everybody. Very excited to share some learnings from our 2020 user study. So kind of starting from the top, what was the goal of our study? It was to develop a better understanding of our customers, what all of your needs are, and then how well we're doing at meeting those needs. And once we have all that information, we can do a better job of improving the product so we can keep adding more value. So the first step in this process is figuring out what is the job that our customers are hiring Law Insider to do. And this is from a framework by Clayton Christensen called the jobs to be done theory. And it's all about the fact that people don't actually buy products, but they hire products to do a job for them. And so in the context of Law Insider, in terms of our core customers, they're hiring Law Insider to find relevant and high quality language to incorporate into their agreements. And the last part is important too. It needs to be as quickly and efficiently as possible, given that time is their most valuable resource. And so once we understand the job that folks are hiring Law Insider to do, then we really wanted to dig into, okay, well, they obviously have needs that they need to have met in order to complete that job. How well are we at Law Insider doing in helping meet those needs? And how can we, for the needs that are not currently being met, how can we do a better job in filling those gaps? And so we launched a survey to a big percentage of our premium customers to try and dig into this a little bit more, and here are some of our learnings. From a firm and role standpoint, you'll see that most of our paid customers are either solo attorneys, small firm attorneys, or in-house counsel. But as I'm sure you all realize, it kind of runs the gamut in terms of different roles and firms for which Law Insider could be of value. In terms of frequency of use, 40% of our customers are using Law Insider 2 to 3 times a month, so a little bit less than once a week. But about 37% are using it more often, so either once a week or multiple times a week, which is more in line with kind of our power users. This was an open text question we asked to really figure out what's going on, what's the context before a customer logs into Law Insider. And as you can see from this word map, it's typically when a customer is drafting a contract, they're looking for precedence in terms of a contract or a clause that they can use for the document they're working on. Typically something that's non-standard in a different area than their specific area of expertise. And then they come onto Law Insider to look for the high quality language. And then we want to know, what are you actually doing with the language that you find? And as a lot of you know, it may not be exactly fitting to what you're working on. And so they'll find the language on Law Insider that most closely fits what they're working on. And then they'll adapt or tailor it to fit what exactly they're working on. And then they'll incorporate it into that agreement. And so we really wanted to dig in of our existing offering. What are the features that you find the most value in? And far and away, it was our advanced search functionality. And this makes sense. If the job that you're hiring Law Insider to do is to find high quality language quickly and efficiently, then advanced search helps you do that because it takes a database of millions of documents and you can refine that into a few that meet your criteria. And then in terms of features that are the least valuable, a little over half of the ability to save documents. I think Preston went over some great enhancements that we're making to this product, or this feature, excuse me, that we are confident will increase value in terms of the ability to save documents, but we'll continue to monitor how valuable this is to our customers. What is one thing that we can add to Law Insider to make it more valuable? General improvements to search, additional filters or categories, and then more document types. So just expanding the database, which I know Preston talked through a little bit earlier. We wanted to dig a little bit deeper into search filters and categories. So we ran some isolated customer interviews specifically for this. And some of this we do offer already today, but still want it to be comprehensive in terms of everything that our customers are asking for. And so at large, they want the ability to filter both contracts and clauses by the following categories or tags. So industry sector, jurisdiction, agreement or document type, date or issuing year, just knowing that the laws are always changing and that the more recent ones are more relevant, and then advanced word search, which we talked a little bit about earlier. And the most frustrating part of using Law Insider, the most popular response was the irrelevancy of the search results. This makes sense. I mean, if you're using Law Insider to find high quality language in situations when it's not relevant, that's going to be frustrating. And so this is super helpful for us as we figure out where to invest. We now know that we're going to place a larger emphasis on enhancements or new product lines that increase the relevancy of search results to our customers. And then in terms of adding a new product line, so not necessarily enhancing an existing feature, but how can we grow the product? Our customers said they're interested in forms, templates, again, additional document types, and then a further investment in drafting content or articles, kind of similar to today's webinar. And then we end the survey with an NPS score question, which is how likely are you to recommend Law Insider to a friend or colleague? If you answer 0 through 6, you're deemed a detractor from the brand. 7 to 8 is passive, and 9 or 10 is promoter. And so we calculate NPS score by subtracting detractor percent from the promoter's percent. And so in this case, you would take 19%, subtract that from 42%. And so our NPS score from this population is 23%. Really anything positive is good in the sense that you have more promoters than detractors. But we're obviously always striving for improvement. And so the next step will be digging into this and talking to our promoters and saying, okay, well, what are we doing really well? And from those findings, we'll continue to invest in that. And then we also similarly want to talk to our detractors and say, okay, well, what are some areas of improvement for us that will get you into that passive or promoter bucket, and then we'll invest in those areas as well. Buyer personas. So for those that are not familiar, could use a refresher, I'll go through this pretty quickly, but a buyer persona is a semi-fictional representation of our ideal customer based on a lot of these interviews that we did, based on the survey results. And it's super important for us and ultimately for our customers, because if we understand our customers, then we're able to empathize with them, and we can do a better job of creating value for them. And once we kind of lock down these personas, we distribute it across the Law Insider organization, and everybody uses it to optimize the work that they're focusing on. And so just in the interest of time, I'll go through one of the three personas. One of the requirements of personas that you come up with corny, funny names. So here it's Solo Scotty. And so Scotty is a solo practitioner. His practice area is business. He used to work at a large law firm, but went off on his own. One of the keys here is that he's not just lawyering as he was when he was working at a firm, but he's doing essentially everything it takes to keep the wheels on the bus for the business. So marketing, networking, business ops, he's got a lot on his plate. And whereas at the large firm, maybe it was a little more bureaucratic, slow moving, he's very quick to make decisions. And so some of the challenges that Scotty faces, he's working on a tighter budget. He doesn't have that consistency from an income standpoint. Whereas at the law firm, he had a huge library that he could leverage for precedents. Here he, needs access to other tools to get to that same point. And it's super competitive. So Scotty's always figuring out ways to differentiate and expand his service offering. Some of his goals at the top right, always trying to deliver really high quality work, completing work for his clients in a timely fashion. He's always trying to make that money and increase his bottom line. So in terms of next steps, we have this really rich data from our surveys. We now have our personas, a few of which we can combine all of this and really figure out how can we add the most value to you guys, our customers, and then prioritize those things. And these are a few quotes that we got through the surveys and the interviews that I think do a good job of summing up the ways in which our customers are deriving value from Law Insider. So the first one, the time that Law Insider saves me and the resulting cost savings for my clients easily justifies the cost. So here I think the key is the time savings. Oftentimes, for a small firm attorney or a solo practitioner, anyone really, time is your most valuable resource. And so if we can build things that are helping you save even more time and ultimately your clients money, then we know we're adding value. The second one, Law Insider is allowing me to expand my offering. So not only can I service more clients, but I can also service my existing clients more. So we know that if we can help you do that, maybe you have a specific focus area, but your clients are asking you for help in a different area. Hopefully with Law Insider, you're able to say yes, as opposed to maybe outsourcing that ask to a third party. And then lastly, since I started using Law Insider, I've been able to negotiate much more effectively on behalf of my company. So able to leverage our database to figure out, okay, what clauses are going to be favorable to my company in this particular situation. And so this kind of becomes our North Star. As we figure out how do we grow the business, what do we focus on, we're going to make sure that everything that we do is very aligned with the ways in which our customers have told us that we add value for them. And so we're super excited. This is an ongoing process. And so we'll continue to be in close communication with you guys, our customers, knowing that your needs are also ever changing. But that kind of wraps up the survey data findings. I'll pass it back to you, Preston.
Cool. And Jaden, you can just, if you don't mind, just jump into the last slide. I think there's only one more and we can wrap. So I really appreciate everyone joining us. Jaden, thanks for walking us through. If folks are scratching their head saying, why on earth did Jaden just walk through that? I think it is important to acknowledge that We want to be transparent with you as a small business that's getting better and is investing a lot into the products that serve you, that we're doing our best to listen. And so that was a part of the listening tour, but hopefully that will be an ongoing effort. So if you didn't see something we addressed today that you'd like us to address, you can email us at support@lawinsider.com. You can email me personally as a co-founder. I'll make sure that this gets addressed, preston@lawinsider.com. We talked about submitting the contract teardown. I hope there's like at least 6 of you that are like super fired up about doing that. And so I look forward to your submissions. That is community@lawinsider.com. You already raised your hand for the Facebook group, so I will respond back to you all on that. We're going to do the year promotion if you submit one of the teardowns. So I hope that that's really exciting for some of you. That could be hundreds of dollars of savings. I guess that's it. I hope you enjoy the new features. Tell us what you want. We're here to help you. We're here to make the product better. Oh, last thing is, if you're on the fence about upgrading and the cost is what has prevented you from accessing premium, email me and let's figure it out together. Because I know that the free experience has all kinds of compromises to it. It's not as good. It's a little bit annoying with all the pop-ups, etc. And so email me and we'll figure something out. It's preston@lawinsider.com. That's it. Jaden, thanks for backing us up on this today. Stay tuned for more webinars and more emails from Law Insider. Be safe out there. Have a great day.
Thanks,